Okay, satyrs in the Bible. You know what we're finding out now that we've realized that the Greeks had a lot of hand in the Bible, and I guess it was evident all along. I mean, we know the oldest Bibles we find are Septuagint, and even the other Bibles have Greek words inputted into them. So it's kind of odd. And the farther we go back, and now scholars and everybody, people really have realized that Greek and Romans together made the Old Testament and New Testament. And they did so to equate things to their gods. And this is an extreme example of it right here. Um, this is a satyr. And satyrs were known from the land of the Golden Age and a time of plenty. And they're from the Levant area, which is the area in question in the Bible, and the whole area through from Persia all the way to India, all the way back, Mesopotamia, and the Levant and Canaan, Canaanite area. And in that area, there are people known as the Satyrs, and it can be Satyr or Satur, and Satyr. And so, what are Satyrs? Well, they're somebody who originally came from well, the Chaldees, and they were over there in the land of plenty. And they're looked at always as being a depiction that looks like this depiction you see here. And I kind of chose this for a reason. I had a lot of cool pictures I was looking at to start off with, but this one shows you that they have the wine goblet, that they're the gods that do that, and they're with Dionysus and Pan, all these things, and fawns and so on. Fawns are more of the deer aspect. These are really actually more of a goat type aspect, or sometimes they put rams on them and type things, but it's really a goat. And so you find that this is signifying the land of the time of plenty, when these people were hooked up with the zodiac in the time of the lamb, Aries. And it's also known as the time of war. So there were great wars during this time, trying to get everything together and get people satiated and things. And you can see that by looking at this prose that's presented to you after this, that this is actually trying to pull everybody into one land. And what they're doing is equating all their old gods into one separate god, into one different entity. That they're trying to pull um, all of the deities and all of the ancient rituals that could have been from some of the other gods and pull it actually into this one concept here. And, we look at Greeks and Romans, and we know that they used to take everybody else's gods and put it into their pantheon. It's where they came from. They didn't just have one or two. I mean, Kronos was a Phoenician. All these different gods come from different areas, and they pulled them in their pantheon. They weren't the people like most everybody else seemed to have gods that were from their exact locality. But the Greeks and Romans seemed to have the gods of the world, or the known world at that time. So when you look at this depiction here, of course, I picked it for a reason. I said, well, it's got the wine and Dionysus hooked up to it, which is another god of the Levant area. And he's a god of rebirth. And it's a pagan god thing, of course, right? And but it shows that he has the Jewish symbol on his chest, that he's got his star of the god Remphan, and this is Saturn, and that star meant Saturn. You can look at some of my other videos. I don't have to go into a long tirade about how that symbol is actually the seal of Solomon, and actually the Jewish star, the star of the god Remphan, they talk about in Exodus. And so he also has the bread, and the whole Passover idea came from a few different areas. Of course, in Judaism, they believed that it had to do with them having left Egypt. Well, we know now that that really never happened. There's not any record of it at all. But what there are records of is whenever this land of plenty went to crap through the droughts, that everybody leached off of Egypt. And Egypt owned this whole area at one time, and up through Levant. And when we look at old ancient Egyptian mummies and things, we're coming to find out now that a lot of those are blonde and red haired and Caucasoids, which they've traced down now and say that they leave during the early dynasties into the middle area of the Hyksos. Exodus actually could be what they're talking about, and then they leave. That there had been 400 years in the in-between where they had been together, but then there was the separation, and north and south, a Judea and a Israel are the L area, Levant. So Saturn or Satyr is known by the Greeks as Kronos. So if you've ever studied Greek lit, there's Saturn and Kronos, but then L is what they call them in the whole area of Levant. And so Saturn is L. It's the same guy. You equate it all in together. Well, at what time, who was worshiping what down here? Well, you find out, the Canaanites and all these Moabites and these badass people that are around there that they need to kill off are all actually related to each other in some cultural way, and they all seem to have these same cultural epitaphs with them and things that they'll do. Their rituals, things like that. And one of their rituals of bread is to take the first bread of the year of harvest and don't even take the time to leaven it at all. That right after it does, the first thing they do is give praise, and so they make unleavened bread at first and burn it away, back to the gods, and give God his tithing, his percentage. It's something they came up with, and other people saw that and they go, oh, give back to the gods. What would the gods need with anything? Gods don't need bread, they don't need anything, but this is a way of giving back, and maybe that's a sign, maybe that's a good thing. So they'll start adopting it, and you find it adopted around in the area a little bit, and then of course you find out that the Hebrews later claimed that they invented the whole thing, and then how they do it, and the lamb's blood above the doors and all those type of things that kept them safe whenever everybody got killed through the land of Egypt, which again there's really no show for. In fact, 3 times in the Bible it says don't be mean to your visitors, because you were visitors in the land of Egypt as opposed to being slaves. So, but you could find people that say that they're under slavery, and that they would be oppressed by another people by just being overlorded by them. Like say whenever Rome owned all of the Levant area and Jerusalem, like in the Bible, whenever Herod and all those guys in the overlord thing. So, but see, doesn't that put it in a totally different light? And so all of a sudden you say, well, it's slavery and bondage. Well, it wasn't really slavery and bondage. It was just overlording. Like every time in history when Alexander the Great comes through, and then they kind of own that area for a while until other people war back, and so back and forth. So now all of a sudden it doesn't seem to be so big of a woo exodus, type thing. And if you look up the Red Sea, it's actually Reed Sea, and they went across Sea of Reeds and never parted water, and all of a sudden you start to lose divinity out of this real bad. But let's look at these Levant people here real quick and what it says in the Bible, and let me show you this Satyr that's in the Bible, the Satyrs, because they are Satyr or Saturn, and that's L. And of course, the people that the Hebrews worship are L. So, and they never really changed. It's still there. I mean, you look in the Bible, and who is it? Who is the council of gods? They're the Elohim. So it's pretty easy to say, well, what's that? Well, it's council of God. Well, what's God's name in that? That's L. Oh, okay. Well, what about house of God? What's that? Bethel. Okay, well, Beth means house, and the name of God is El. What's just right there in your face, isn't it? Yeah, there's angels, and their name is Gabriel, Ariel, Michael, right? So it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? They worship a temp El. Oh, well, they didn't. No, they didn't do that. They hated the Canaanites. Well, then why would all their names contain the word of their other god? Hopefully I don't have to say things like that to get you to realize that that's the truth, but it's the truth, that they worship El. And El has a son named Baal. And so they're, oh yeah, the Baal worship in the Bible. No. Once they take the sign off the door, everything stays the same, or they wouldn't call it the Elohim. They wouldn't call them Temp Els anymore, right? It wouldn't be sitting there like a big elephant in your face anymore. They would definitely change that, but they don't want to change it. And why don't they want to change it? You know, it's an oddity, isn't it? Well, it's not really an oddity when you find out Greek and Roman had their hands into it, and El is Saturn. Saturn was their primordial god, and that they worshipped all the way up until Christianity. In fact, the major hill in Rome was Saturnus Mons, that was their major god. And if you know anything about Greek lit, and you know in Roman, that for a while Saturn had run over through the land of time of plenty in the golden age, but then something went all wrong that they write weird stories about, but it ends up being to where Zeus takes over. He's the storm god, right? Everybody worships the storm god during a time of drought, don't they? People start killing their babies and things like that just so it'll try to rain, you know, like doing rain dances and all kinds of crazy things. Crazy things will happen to like primitive people who haven't quite figured it out yet before philosophy and things come along, which come along just a little bit later, again from the Greeks and Romans. But so it tells you in this story here that this is a famous story that everybody knows. This is whenever the lion and the lamb lay down together. And so people are familiar with this. Well, here's the worship of all kinds of gods and how they try to put them together. Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot. Well, if you've studied ancient Near East cultures, then you know about the Sumerians all the way on the other side and how they used to worship a thing where a tree had been cut off and then overnight a shoot grew up, and that shoot was worshipped as Demuzzi, and they would do this annual thing with evergreen trees on December 21st through 25th as the sun got reborn and everything else was dying off, but the evergreen trees lived, right? It's something that we adopted into Christmas today. It's the reason we do the evergreen boughs. You can look up Mithra and Christmas and a few of these other videos I've done on that. But so that's where this is. Yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him. Okay, so he has, you know, knowledge and fear of the Lord, the counsel of might, all these things he talks about. But what this basically is telling you that somebody is going to get all their crap together and make it straight. And who is it in the Bible? Well, it's actually the Greeks. So they have put their primordial gods in that position, and that's El, that's Saturn, and that's the one they worship totally. So they're going to get everybody worshiping this, and they do. In fact, you can take the name off of it, and you can take an old Sumerian god named Yahweh and put it over the front of it and change the name. But if you don't have, you still have El, Elyon, Elia, and all these different names. That's, you know, El Shaddai, which was actually his wife. It's a female name. Shaddai is a feminine word. Shad is female breasts. It means goddess of the two mountains. So it's like god of the boobies. And whenever you see all those old pictures of Inanna where she's holding her breast or has a bunch of boobs, you know, and things like that on her, she's the woman of plenty. It's back whenever they had that type of worship going on. Well, everybody, oh, that's pagan. Now that's in your Bible. That's actually exactly what that is. And Asherah was her name. So look up Yahweh and his Asherah, and you'll see that, oh, wow, it's a pagan thing where there's this bull god. Yeah, he's not quite a fawn, he's a bull god. So you can read this. You can pause it and read it on through. But on that day, here's where it's famous. In that day, the wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with a baby goat. And here it's his baby goat. And the calf and the yearling will be safe with the lion, and the child will lead with them all. Cows will graze near the bear. The cub calf will lie down. Lion will eat the hay, and the baby will play safe near the hole of a cobra. Yes, a child will put its hand in a nest of deadly snakes without harm. Okay, so if you studied Greek lit, then you know that, was it Hercules, whenever he was a baby, had done the exact same thing and stuck his hand into a hole and killed vipers, crushed the head of the viper, like what's talking in the Bible and stuff. So On that day, the heir to David's throne and a banner of salvation to all the world will rally him. What's this banner thing? Well, who ran all the banners, and stuff. It's showing you it's Greek. And so oddly here, now we know it's just Jews, right? It's just Jews and all these other people that ain't anything of. But what he does is he calls back remnants in Assyria, in northern Egypt, southern Egypt, Ethiopia, Elam, Babylonia, Hamath, all the distant coastlands. So he calls all the people together, all of the Persianish people from the Levant or whatever, the Caucasian people that are all from that area. But he also mentions Ethiopia. So anyhow, they're all going to come together and they'll raise a flag among the nations and all come together. And this is something that happened a long time ago. They were like, whenever you say Alexander the Great comes through and he does all this, this is it right here. All right. Okay. So let's find the Satyr finally here. I'm going to show you. And so if you go on through Isaiah there, 116, you go to 34:14, and it's going to tell you that later beasts happen again, and it starts going through it, and it's got a whole bunch of allegory that goes on, and who's fighting who, and things like that. And modern day Hebrew Israelites are saying, oh, see, this is whenever we're going to come on. This played out thousands of years ago, before the fall of Egypt. But oh, it's going to happen again. What would make you think that people are going to go back to wearing goatskin pants for any reason? And in the Levant, that really had nothing to do with sub-Saharan Africa. They don't even really mention it. They mention Ethiopia, which is connected on to Egypt. But anyhow, so here's the word, and the satyr. The wild beasts of the land and the satyr. Well, whenever you look that up, not here, it actually says the wild goat. Well, wild goats are satyrs. And he shall cry to his companion, and the screech owl to find herself a place of rest. Who's the owl? This is Inanna. This is the goddess of wisdom, right? She's going to find a place of rest. They're all going to find a place of rest. How are they going to find a place of rest? Well, they sure didn't in the Bible. They all got killed off. No. It's all sucked back in, up under one God. And then they say it's all the same thing, and you can only worship the one. Kind of like you only worship Zeus because he was the controller of all, and everything kind of went to him. You don't necessarily do it below, but they still have, saints and things that people pray to, and Mother Mary. Well, isn't that Asherah? Mm-hmm. Isn't that the mother of the God that reborn? Isn't that Semiramis that you're actually doing there? And the tree and everything here, isn't this exactly that? Isn't that exactly what this is? And now they're telling you that satyrs are part of the Bible. There it is right there. And so here's another example of how the Greeks had their hands in all of this. And people need to quit freaking out and trying to rise up. Oh, we're in the Bible because it says slavery. Man, just because it says slavery doesn't imply you. That's whenever 400 years happened a long, long time ago. It's not something that was supposed to happen in the future. And we're all sorry it did, but let's get all past it. Clearly white people are past the idea of all the slavery and things that happened in the Dark Ages for much longer to them. Much, much longer. And much, much worse. They weren't trying to keep them healthy to work. They were just killing them. So, anyhow, satyrs in the Bible. Check it out. Like if you like it. Sub me. If you don't like the information, I'm sorry, but here's the truth. Satyrs in the Bible. Why would they be there? Why would Greek stuff and old stories of half-grown people be in the Bible? Well, they at the time, whenever the Greeks and Romans were still wearing pants that were made out of goat skins, and they made fun of them due to the wars and the bad things that happened. All of a sudden, they're going to make them look like that. And it goes away, though. It definitely goes away. Here, before I end this, when you look at satyrs, they say that the early satyrs, they always show with these goat legs, and I tried to get pictures of them and everything, but then whenever you look at the later satyrs, they're always shown as, usually having a boner or something, but then they have regular legs. They're just regular people. They have beards. They grow beards, like people in the Bible grow beards. All the Arabs in that area grow beards, right? So they're showing you this bearded thing. Oh, one more thing. Tell me that's not Bill Murray as a satyr. Tell me that's not Bill Murray as a satyr. Peace.